Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks so much for joining us. Feel free to go ahead into the chat. You could introduce yourself if you want. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I am tuning in from Ohio, and I'm really happy that you guys are here. I'm trying to do free webinars once a month, so this is the one for this month, and I'm glad that you're participating. Today, we're going to be talking about speech therapy materials. I want to talk to you about the action builder cards and double up, how I use them in therapy. I use them daily in my clinical practice. So if you're somebody who's thinking about purchasing them, or somebody who already has them and you want to know all the different uses, or if you just want to get some new ideas on therapy, materials and things that you can do in your therapy, we're going to talk all about that. If you have any questions, hold them until the end, and I will do a Q&A towards the end of our talk today. So if you're new here, my name is Rose Griffin. I'm a speech language pathologist and a board certified behavior analyst. I work in a public school and I also work in an ABA type center. And I'm also the founder of ABA Speech, which is a blog. We're an ASHA approved CE provider, and I always try to make lots of free resources that are helpful for speech language pathologists and any parents and other professionals in the behavioral world as well. When I am not doing all things related to ABA speech, which takes up a lot of my time, I am spending time with my family, which consists of Paxton, Juliana, and Colette. So everything keeps me super, super busy, but I love doing all those different types of things. I love working with students of all different ages, all different needs, but I really do love specializing in helping students with autism, and especially students who are really hard to help. That's always where my passion has lied. I remember being in graduate school and working in a school with a school-based therapist, and we had a lot of students with very significant needs who had autism. And I really loved the challenge of working with those students who had some behavioral barriers and helping them increase their functional communication skills. That's always been something that's been a joy for me. And now I love having this platform here at ABA Speech to be able to hopefully help all of you do that as well, because it can be really hard to know what to do with students who are not receptive to the strategies that we typically can use for most students. So that's a little bit about me. So I wanted to share with you why I even started creating the action builder cards. I really had no idea how to do any of those different things. I had never created a physical product, and it was this vision that kind of came to me. I had a student I was working with. He's 10 years old, was in a specialized program for students with autism, so a year-round program, very intensive, applied behavior analysis program, and he had unsafe and aggressive behaviors to himself and others. So self-injurious behaviors, he was aggressive towards other people. He had a device that was set up but was not in use. It was actually a very nice setup, very functional setup, but he really wasn't using it. So he came to us at about 10, and the only way that he had to communicate was this very complex repertoire of maladaptive behavior that's really a barrier to him accessing the community, accessing a least restrictive environment like a public school, accessing even larger open areas of the ABA type school that I was in. And so he was staffed with 2 adults to 1 student due to his very unsafe behaviors. And this was a student that I was working with and worked with for about 3 years. So when I first met him, we worked, we obviously did an assessment. We created goals, and the whole first year of his IEP, we really worked on him requesting things that he wanted and needed. We worked on some receptive identification. We worked on him taking care of his device, and really he understood the power of that device. He started to request things that he needed. He was able to orient around to his environment, and we did see a decrease in his behavior. And so these are the progression of his functional targets and kind of what started my brain thinking about creating the action builder cards. We worked on receptive item ID, so noun ID. We worked on expressive item identification, where he was labeling different things. This is in kind of year 2, we started working on labeling. We worked on receptive action ID, so, of preferred actions, who's running, who's on their iPad, things that he kind of liked. We try to use as motivation. We worked on expressive action ID, so having him label different things that were happening in pictures or his natural environment. And then we started to work on expressive phrase construction. And this student was very savvy with his device. It was like when we started working with him and everything was very systematic and I was working on it, the classroom staff was working on it, we had a very narrow focus on what we were working on with our student, we really saw his communication flourish. And it was amazing. And these are the cases I love to talk about because it was amazing to see that systematic approach really help the student have some autonomy in his life, to have some dignity in his life, because he was able to use his device. He was able to tell us things. He was able to navigate his environment in a more safe way after implementing all this very structured, intensive instruction for him. And so one of the things we started working on is he was able to label nouns, he was able to label actions. Then we started systematically putting together those previously mastered nouns, those previously mastered actions, and we started phrase construction. So it was a very systematic language program that he was working on. So he could do pizza and he could do eating. So we did eating pizza, eating chip, eating cookie. Now, these are not the healthiest things in the world, but these are things that the student loved and enjoyed. And a lot of the times when I work with students with more complex needs, I work with things that are preferred for them. So if I'm going to start working on labeling with a student who has significant impairments, I want to make sure that the labeling is going to be functional for them. Yes, they should know what a spoon is, they should know what a toothbrush is, but they're not going to be motivated potentially at the beginning when they're working on that target. So I want to make sure that we're working on things that are functional for their life at the time. And so this is what was functional for the student. Then playing ball, playing game, playing piano, things the student enjoyed that were preferred items. And so we started that way, where we were expressively doing the nouns, the actions, and then putting those nouns and actions together into phrases and doing phrase construction. And so all this time, I was making a lot of pictures, and the staff, they were making a lot of pictures too, using Google Images, because we know that we want to plan for generalization. And so I would always have the staff make, and if I was doing it too, I was sharing that workload, I would have them make at least 3 examples of eating pizza. So when we were working on just labeling pizza, there were 3 examples of pizza, because we want to plan for generalization. We want to use multiple exemplars. We want to show this is pizza that has pepperoni, but this is pizza that has maybe something weird on it like ham or pineapple. I don't know if it's weird to me. And this is pizza that just has cheese. These are all pizza. Even though they look a little different, that's okay. We want you to understand that this is pizza with cheese, this is pizza with pepperoni, and this is pizza with maybe ham on it or something like that. So I was making sure that we had that built-in plan for generalization, and that everybody who was making any type of picture cards understood that. And needless to say, that takes a lot of time. And so in my brain, I was looking for something that I could purchase out in the marketplace, and I really couldn't find anything that was out there that had these different examples. So if I wanted to teach a student eating, and I wanted them to know, like, hey, eating means more than eating an apple. It can mean eating pizza, eating ice cream, eating maybe some type of vegetable, that those things are there. Well, I couldn't find that. I couldn't buy it anywhere pre-fabbed, because I'm all about automating life and making it easier too, but it just wasn't out there. And I thought, if I'm making, and the people I work with are making all these Google image cards, I really think that it would be so helpful if I could just make a set of cards where we're planning for generalization, because we already have multiple examples of functional actions and functional nouns put together. And so that is how the action builder cards were born. That's what gave me the idea for it, that particular student, and just how I've always systematically taught language. It's just kind of something that was in my brain. And so there's lots of different examples of common actions. There's 100 total cards in the box. This is what the box looks like. It's green, if you guys have it. There's 15 actions represented. And so I chose actions that are commonly occurring and that are functional for students. Washing, eating, playing, blowing, riding, things that students are going to encounter in their environment, because we want to make sure that it's functional. There's real life pictures, and I'm going to show you the cards and talk about how I use them. but they're all real life pictures and they are age appropriate for all learners. So I have pictures of boys, pictures of girls, there's different ethnicities represented. I tried to be really cognizant of all that as well. The box is super durable. I use mine and I've had mine, I think they came out, August will be 2 years that they'll have a birthday. It'll be 2 years for the Action Builder cards. And they're really durable. And so that's always really nice when you're working with students who potentially could throw a box or maybe it fell out of your bag, something like that. The thing that makes them stand out, that makes them different, is that all other flashcards on the market have just one picture of an action. So potentially if you're gonna buy another box of cards, they might just have one picture of eating, one picture of playing, one picture of washing, and then that's what you're telling your student, like this is what washing is, this is what playing is, and when they see a different card, they may be confused. They may not understand that. There's multiple examples. It helps us plan for generalization, which is really hard, and a lot of the times people who don't take time to plan for generalization, their students really won't be able to generalize those skills. By us using multiple examples of different actions and nouns that we're showing students, we are really, as a provider, saying we really want to make sure that you can generalize this, that you know that riding means riding when I show you this picture, but that riding also means riding when you're riding your own bike or when your brother or sister is riding a bike. That also means riding. And so that research shows us that when we have multiple examples that we're planning for generalization instead of just hoping that it happens, because that's not really what we want to do, right? We want to plan for that generalization piece. So teaching a student to identify washing, you might just show them one picture if you have another set of cards. The problem when a student sees this picture, they don't know that this is also washing because they've only been taught that one example. So if you just consistently show the one example, and this is washing, washing, this is washing, we work on it, hey, it's functional target, that's really good. We're halfway there. But if we don't show other examples of washing, the student may not understand, hey, washing means washing hands, but when I'm washing a dish, or mom is washing a dish, or dad is helping with the dishes, that also means washing. So we need to plan for that piece of generalization. So these are the different examples if you don't have the cards yet. So all the nouns that are included, all the actions that are included have at least 6 examples. 3 pictures of girls doing the different actions, 3 pictures of boys doing the different actions. The only cards that have more than 6 examples are eating and playing, because there's so many different times that we would talk about eating and playing, and it's more frequently occurring in our language, especially for students who are just acquiring verbal language, because those are things they do. They eat, they play, we talk about that. And so here you can see the progression: washing hands, washing dish, washing hair. They all mean washing, and you can work on the different nouns as well. You could ask questions, you know, what is she washing in the first one? What is she washing? What is she washing? Whatever your student is working on, you can make it functional and applicable with these cards. So it helps us build a bridge. Student works on these examples, the different examples we have laid out in therapy, and then when they're reading a book with their parent, they're gonna have a better chance of understanding that that picture down there, that she's washing the dish. Because if we've given them exposure to it and we've on purpose systematically planned for them to understand that those different things mean washing, that when that just comes up in the natural environment, our student is going to have had different embedded opportunities within their intervention. They're going to have a better chance of understanding, oh, this means washing as well. We've worked on that, I remember that. So these are different ways that I like to use the Action Builder cards, and I would love to know if there's other ways that you use them as well. So labeling actions. So you could have the student, if they're at the point that they're labeling actions, you could say, what is she doing? What is she doing in this picture? And they would use the label, okay, the action. The other thing about the Action Builder cards, if you don't have them, is they have really nice guiding text on the back. So I think these have implications too. If you have other people working with your students, like staff, you could say, okay, we're just up here and this says riding. So it says riding, bike, riding a bike, the girl is riding a bike, she is riding a bike. And so this is nice too if you have students who maybe are having trouble creating grammatically correct sentences, but can use a visual. I've done that as well, that they could use the visual and then you could potentially fade that visual until they make a sentence on their own as well. So it's a really nice application for it as well. So you could use it for labeling actions. You could use it for labeling nouns, pointing to this and having the student label bike, or pointing to this and having the student label horse. There are a lot of different nouns that are represented too, so you could use them in that fashion as well. You could also use it where you're putting out a couple different cards, and let's say that you put out 3 cards, and you want the student to identify riding. And so you put out the riding bike, playing tennis, and blowing. And then you'd say, where's riding? Touch riding. So that would be a receptive ID of actions. And so that's nice too, as a way for students to build their vocabulary, to build a repertoire of understanding different action words. That's another way. Or you could do it with using nouns. You could have all the different people who are riding, and you could say, where's horse? Or give me bike. And so that would be another way to build up a repertoire of nouns. And that's good too for functional vocabulary use. I also use it for phrase construction, like we talked about with my student who I worked with. And so we would say, you know, what is she doing in this picture? Riding bike. What is he doing in this picture? Playing tennis. And that's a really nice way to get a phrase construction. Or if you want to do sentence generation, usually, and I try to teach loosely, I don't always say the same things to students. So I might say, what's happening in this picture? What's happening would be a way for the student to know, okay, I'm going to use a sentence here. Or you could say, tell me a sentence about this picture. You're going to know your learner and what your learner is receptive to. We always talk about that, kind of teach loosely. So we don't want to say the same thing every single time we show the same picture to get a sentence. So some days I may say, tell me a sentence about what's happening there. That might be too much language for a student. I may say, what's happening in this picture? Or I might say, what's happening? And the student gives me a sentence about that. Sometimes I've had students who are readers but have trouble generating a sentence. So I may use the back of the card. It's kind of hard to see, but the sentence is back there. Or I might have an index card that says the sentence, and then I may fade that visual. Or I may put that sentence on index cards. One index card says she, the next says is, and then riding, and then up, and then bike. And maybe I systematically fade those visuals. Maybe the student eventually just needs she. What's happening? You have the she out, she is riding a bike. Great. Okay, then we take it, the next session, we take it away, and what's happening? She is riding a bike. They make it all on their own. Whatever's gonna work for your learner, and you know, we're not gonna talk about data today, but we take a lot of data, right, when we're in sessions. And then sorting by gender, I've had that too for students who, you know, students with autism, that's hard. It's really hard for them, right? So she, he, you know, having them just sort, put with boy, put with girl, match boy, match girl, so they're understanding it's different. Pronoun use can be really hard too for students. And then another way that I've been using them and really hadn't even worked on those would you rather questions. I really love that because it's almost like there's a built-in prompt. And the one that I always use here in Ohio, because this is very Ohio if you're tuning in from Ohio, is would you rather build a sandcastle or a snowman? So those would you rather questions, and these cards lend themselves to a lot of that. Would you rather build a sandcastle or a snowman? What's nice is it gives you a built-in visual prompt. So let's say that you have a student who knows the labels of these and can answer the question easier by having them shown, which is fine. So I do that a lot in a mixed group. So I might have would you rather Halloween questions. Would you rather, if you're allowed to talk about that in your school, I know not every school does that. Would you rather fall questions? Would you rather spring questions? Some of those I put up my blog for free at ABA Speech too. You can check that out. But I like to have these as a visual for the students. And then some students may not need that visual and maybe you could take them away for that student. But then the student, maybe I ask student A answers, and then I say, oh, I wonder what so-and-so would rather build. And then these could be the visual that prompt them to ask the student. It's all gonna be dependent on your student's language level. But I really like those are fun for that too. So those are some ways that I use the action builder cards when I'm doing therapy. Okay, and then let's watch this. Let me see here. Let's watch this Oh, okay, Susan. Thanks for joining us, Susan. Susan said, I've used your cards to teach negation. Show the one who is not riding. See, that's great. I don't have a lot of kids at that language level, but that's another really great way, right? Show one person that's riding and two that aren't, or maybe two that are riding and one that's not. Which one is not riding? That's a great idea. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, this is, I don't know if I want to show this video. I feel like I explained all this really well. This is just a video that I was going to show about the action builder cards and about generalization, but I feel like we went over that so thoroughly that I'm not going to share that. So I do have a YouTube channel called ABA Speech. I have video models on there. That particular video is on there. It's all about generalization, but I feel like I went over that so thoroughly and in depth that I'm not gonna make you watch it. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going here. Okay, so keeping things fun and functional. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Double Up. Double Up is the other product that is our newer product. And I wanted to share briefly how my vision for that started. So I had a middle school student. He was communicating using short phrases, is able to engage in labeling, simple turn-taking activities with some faded adult guidance, meaning we could play modified Uno, we could play the grocery store game, but it's things that they would need an adult around, right? They get caught up on something every once in a while. So maybe they need a gestural prompt or they need something to keep the activity flowing, but that's kind of where the skill set is. They engage in vocational activities, group lessons, cooperative group lessons. I wanted to offer students at this level an age-respectful way to work on leisure and vocabulary skills. I have been working with older students, I feel like quite some time. I have a lot of different range of students, but a bulk of my students are in middle school and high school. And if you really look at what's in the marketplace right now for students, I just was having a really hard time finding stuff that was, number one, age respectful, meaning that they were real life pictures. And number two, that was up to date and current. I feel like a lot of the stuff that's out there for older students is very old, from 85 or something, like very old. And it wasn't meeting my learners' needs. And I have a lot of students who are in middle school and high school, and their skills, they can still increase their skill set, but they are students who potentially are not going to get beyond being able to match picture to picture. And there's not a lot of leisure opportunities out there for students that have that skill set. If you can match picture to picture, what is really out there for you to engage with? There really isn't a lot. And so I had this idea for Double Up. So this is the product that is a leisure and vocabulary activity. And it's for students in grades 5 to above. You could use this for adults. My own kids like to play it and they're super small, but I think it's just because, you know, we have it at home and I created it. But here's what it looks like. So it's a 4-person player game and 1 to 4 people. And so the focus of the game is on leisure nouns. The purple is leisure nouns and the red is leisure actions. And then the blue is hygiene nouns and the orange is hygiene actions, because a lot of the times when we're talking with middle school and high school students and adults, we want them to know, okay, these are items for hygiene, they're important. You need to know what they're called, you need to understand the actions, you need to implement them, right? That's very important for competitive employment, or if you have students that are going to group activities during the day. And then leisure is so important. When we're teaching students, okay, this is competitive employment. If you have a student who has that, okay, you have a break time. What are you going to do during your break time? Okay, most of us would probably get on our phone, but some people bring a book to work, or, you know, they might engage in activities after work with friends, like a softball league or lifting weights or playing putt-putt, all those different things. And so this game looks at that. And so you can play it, and I'm going to show you the pictures. You can play it with 1 person or 4 people. There's 4 games included. Every single color of the boards is a different game. Okay, you can match picture to picture, you can match basketball to basketball, you can match person playing basketball to a person playing basketball, or you can match picture to associated picture. So if you have students who are higher level learners, you can match that basketball to a picture of a person playing basketball. So you can make it what you want, which is really flexible and I think so perfect for those of us who are working with multiple students in a clinical setting. So let's watch this clip. It gives you a good idea of how this game is played. So that's a little snippet of that game in action. And that video is also on my ABA Speech YouTube channel. So this is what Double Up looks like. You get 144 of these vocabulary cards, which are really nice. You can just work on these for labeling for students too. And then 4 different games. So each color board comes with 4 different, there's 4 blue boards, 4 purple, 4 orange, 4 red. And so it's a really nice way to be able to engage like in leisure with your students with functional topics. So this is what the hygiene items look like, hygiene nouns. We know that that's very important for our students. This is an example of the hygiene actions. So every action has a noun that's correlated with it. So every hygiene noun has a hygiene action that goes together. Every leisure action has a leisure noun that goes together. So you can match picture to picture or picture to associated picture. And so they're really vibrant colors. I handpicked all those actions out and picked things that were functional and fun and things that students should be talking about. And it's functional for them to learn at that age group. So these are the ways that I use Double Up. So I may use Double Up as a 4-person game matching picture to picture. So let's say that I have a group of students who are working on matching hygiene nouns. So I could take my game board and I'd have all the blue cards out and I would match picture to picture. So here's the tissue and then here's the tissue here and we could match. So it lends itself to the students, if they pick the tissue and they have it on their board, they match it. And if they don't have it, they can pass it to the student next who has it. Or if your student has enough language, they could say who has the tissue. Sometimes my students have trouble creating that whole sentence, who has the tissue, that whole question. So they may just see who has it and they may pass it to them. And that's okay. That's okay if that's okay for your student, right? I always try to think of myself when I'm facilitating leisure with students, especially middle school, high school, adult. I think to myself, I would love these students to be able to engage in this activity without me being present. So how can I use the least amount of prompting that's going to allow my students to engage in a turn-taking activity that's cooperative in nature, which is really functional for students. And I don't want them to say, your turn, my turn. It's not functional because typical peers don't say that. I've done this too, where I'm teaching a student commenting within a game. So I'll take a student who is a typical peer, or I'll take a student maybe who has typical language and has some other issues, and that's why they're kind of in this placement. But I'll have them, and I'll take like a kind of a faux language sample, just narratively write down what they're saying. And the things that a typical peer is using for that typical language, that's what I want to teach my student. And students really don't always say your turn, my turn. So I always try to think to myself, how can I help these students engage in this activity with the least amount of prompting? Because my goal, especially for older learners, is to be able to fade myself out of the equation. So I could say, hey, why don't you guys get Double Up? I'll help you set it up and you guys play. And I'll be over here if you need help. Now, I know that's not going to be the case for everybody, but that's always kind of my vision. How can I help them play, but how can I provide the least amount of prompting? How can I fade myself out of the equation? Okay, so you can match picture to picture, or if you have students who are able to match by association, you could have the orange boards, which are the actions, and you could use the blue cards. And so every noun correlates with an action. So if you get tissue, you can match it to this man blowing his nose, okay? It depends on the level of your student. So we also have the same for leisure. If I have the picture of the book and I want to match picture to picture, I can use the purple cards. I get the book, I match it. I could also use the red cards and I could have the book and match to the person reading a book. So it's all dependent on who you're working with that day. I think that's why it's a really nice flexible activity. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a one-person game where I might have one student and maybe they're working on some of these different labels, and then we will go through and we'll have just the purple cards out and we'll match what we find, and we'll talk about the different words, and maybe we'll put them in a sentence, or we'll answer questions about them. So if I have one student in therapy, sometimes that is what we work on as well. Another thing that I've done for students is, let's say that I have a small group of students and I think they have a shorter level of engagement. So they're not going to be able to play this game for 20 minutes. Maybe they're going to play it for 8, okay? Because I've taken data and I know that that's about their engagement level. What I'll do is I'll have one game board and I will go through and I will hand select these cards. It takes 30 seconds to pick out these cards. So I know that every single time somebody in the group picks a card, they're going to be able to match it. So, you know, Joe picks a card, he matches it. Quinn picks a card, they match it. So there's no downtime. There's no, oh, we don't have this one. This one's not on the game, right? Some kids can play a game like that, and that's great. If a kid can tolerate that kind of transition, that kind of wait, that's what we all want for everybody. But we know, at least I have kids on my caseload that can't wait like that. And so I'll just hand pick these cards from the blue bin, and I will have them play it. And that's a really nice way to work on leisure as well, functional leisure, because it's things that we should be talking about with older students. Another thing that's really cool that I've had some teachers do is use these as an independent workstation. So you have the one card, and then maybe in that baggie, you have just the pictures that match here. And you could even put this in a sheet protector and put Velcro on the sheet protector. However you want to use the cards, you know, that's up to you. And then the student would go through and match it, and that would be part of an independent workstation, and they would be working on that independently. Another thing that you can do with Double Up that I really am excited about is that you could use it as a family activity, because a lot of the times what happens when, especially when you have students who are older, your children, if they're your own children, if you're tuning in and you're a parent, or if you're just a therapist and you're working with older students, a lot of the times, I have 3 kids of my own, you know, we do tons of stuff together. But when you think about our families who have older students who have more severe disabilities, sometimes there's not a lot of things that they can do shared activities together. And this is definitely something that parents can feel good about, because it's something that's engaging. You're working on social reciprocity with turn taking. It's a group activity. They could do it with their siblings. And it's something that's just easy. It's already made. You can just pull it out, and it could be something that they do together. And it's a really nice shared family time. That's something that parents, I think, can feel really isolated, because there's not always things that they can do that are fun and functional with their own kids. So that's something that I'm proud of too, that when people tell me that they've played that at home, it makes me happy. So I wanted to tell you some ways that you can purchase, and I have a coupon code for you guys. If you go to avaspeech.org, that is my website, and you can press shop. When you press shop, it will take you. I have the Action Builder cards for sale on their own. I have Double Up for sale on its own. And I also have a bundle where you save some money when you buy both of them together. So some people like that because it's just easy. It's going to work for their caseload, and you know, you're going to pay for shipping. Just do it one time, right? So you can press shop and you can find them there. You can also scroll down on avaspeech.org and you can press this icon that says shop. It'll take you to the same place. It's just 2 ways to get to the same place where you can check out. So I wanted to let you know all about that. I do have a coupon code, and I'll send you the replay in a couple hours, and I'll send you this coupon code as well. And the coupon code is 15 off ABA speech. And so that will save you 15% off your entire purchase. And that will expire on July 9th. So just to let you know, I'll send everybody who registered, you guys will get a replay if you want to like remember some of the ideas about how to use the products in your own clinical practice. And I definitely can take some questions. If you guys have questions, somebody else put something in chat. Somebody said, I'm using it right now to teach my son to differentiate between boy and girl. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's a way that somebody was using the Action Builder card. So I will answer any questions. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I will stay on here for a minute. You can type them in that box and I will answer them. And if you don't have any questions, that's totally fine too. I will let you know that, so the coupon will expire on July 9th, and I think that will be really helpful to have that coupon. Sometimes in the summer, some of us are not exactly thinking about what's happening in the school year if you're a school-based therapist, but if you're in a year-round program or if you have a child with autism, then you're always thinking about these things. So, okay, somebody said, are you planning on creating more action builder cards with other common words? At this time, I am not planning on doing that. I do have a very small TPT store. It's called Teachers Pay Teachers. And I have an item called Life Skills Flashcards. If you have older students and they are flashcards for adults and middle school, high school students engaging in more leisure type activities, hygiene type activities, things like that. But I don't have any plans right now, but I definitely will let you guys know if that changes. Susan said, can you remind us how to play Uno with your cards? Oh, well, you can play Uno, not with the action builder cards. So when I was talking about playing modified Uno, I have a video on ABA Speech. If you go to YouTube and just look up ABA Speech, my channel should come up. You could subscribe to it, so anytime I add something new, you'll be on there to get that. I like to play modified Uno by placing, taking out all the special cards, taking out the skip, the draw two, all that, and then just putting a blue card, a yellow card, a red card, a green card, and then shuffling the cards, having the student pick a color, and then matching it by there. But I have a really nice video model of modified Uno on my YouTube channel, ABA Speech, which is nice. I show it to the students before we play it, and it's worked out really well. Somebody said, oh, okay, thank you. I've been watching you since you did the SLP Summit a year ago. I've not gotten the cards, but I hope to in the future. Aw, thanks, Tatiana. That's really nice. I like to hear that. I need positive reinforcement too. Okay, awesome. Okay, if nobody else has any questions, I'm gonna sign off here. So make sure that you check out your email in a couple hours. I will send it to you. If you have the cards and double up, amazing. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope it was helpful information. And if you haven't purchased them yet, this is a great time to, because they're on sale. So anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks for taking time to spend time with me, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.